Hi, I'm State Representative Maria Robinson.
And I'm State Senator Becca Rausch.
And today we're presenting you with the first video in a series that we're affectionately calling
Low Budget Beacon Hill, Episode 1,
The Budget. So, Senator, what is the Massachusetts state budget and why does it matter?
This is a great question. I get asked this question all the time. I think of our budget as a comprehensive collective statement of our shared values. This is the one thing that we do every single year that sets forth all of the revenue, all of the dollars that the state takes in, and also all of the thousands of ways in which we spend those dollars. And the things that we choose to spend money on, that's what we actually care about.
And even though our sessions last 2 years, the budget process happens every single year because we need to fund things like mass health, our schools, our roads, parks and recreation.
The T.
It'd be great if we spent more on the T.
The T.
It's true. So just to give you a little bit of context, our budget for fiscal year 2020 was $43 billion, and that's billion with a B. That sounds like a lot of money, but how do we compare in terms of spending per person to other states?
Well, Rhode Island, another one of our New England neighbors, spends roughly $9,500 per person in their state budget. Massachusetts, when you crunch the numbers, spends just about $6,000 per person. Even West Virginia spends more money per person than we do, coming in at roughly $7,500.
That really gets away from that whole moniker of being Taxachusetts, which everyone still says to me all of the time.
Sure does.
How's the budget organized?
There are 4 sections of the budget. Section 1 is revenue, or how the state generates money. Section 2 is appropriations, or how funds are allocated to state government departments, agencies, and programs. All of these allocations are designated by unique line items, and line items consist of an account number, the amount to be spent on a program, service, or initiative, and the language that outlines how that money is allowed to be spent. Section 3 is local aid, which is basically the state funds given to Massachusetts public school districts. Section 4 of the budget is more commonly known as the outside sections. This is real legislation that often creates rules and structures around how we spend in the Commonwealth. In practice, sometimes these outside sections pertain to spending and revenue, and sometimes these outside sections create new legislation that actually has nothing to do with the budget process. So, what's the timeline for creating the budget?
So our fiscal year starts on July 1st and ends the following June 30th. But the process of creating a budget really takes the entire year. It's a full year long project.
The executive branch, for purposes of the process, makes their budget requests to the governor, and the governor looks at all those and then issues this in January. This is known as House 1. It is the governor's budget proposal, and it sets forth all of the revenues, all of the spending, and all the outside sections that the governor wants to see in the budget. Then the House takes up that House 1 bill and makes various changes to it, and all of the representatives get to file various amendments, and they take up their budget debates in April in the House. And by the end of the month of April, we have the House budget. That kicks it over back to the Senate, and the Senate Ways and Means Committee issues its budget proposal, which we get also in a book. All the revenue, all of the spending, all of the outside sections, and that gets issued in early May, and then the senators basically do the same thing that the reps had previously done. We file our amendments. The Senate has a week of debate toward the end of May, and by Memorial Day weekend, the Senate issues its final budget. Then we come together in
Conference Committee. And in Conference Committee, we work out the differences between the Senate version of the budget and the House version of the budget, which could be specific line items being funded at different levels or different outside sections having different policies. And we work to create a single document that then gets sent to the governor. And the governor has the opportunity then to perform line item vetoes. Usually what happens is the governor will line item veto a number of individual items and then send it back to the House and the Senate, where we typically override with our 2/3 votes in order to add those sections back into the budget. Now we'll answer some frequently asked questions. And the first question we get asked all the time.
All the time.
Does the budget have a deadline?
Why, yes, indeed it does. The fiscal year for the Commonwealth runs from July 1st to June 30th. So the budget for the upcoming year, the upcoming fiscal year, is actually due on June 30th. Now, we often don't meet that deadline. So what happens when we don't meet that deadline?
During that period of time, we pass what's known as an interim budget, and that covers usually about a month's worth of spending. We frequently call it a 1/12 budget, if we're being cute. So the most important question that I'm asked is, how can I have my voice heard in the budget process? And there are so many different ways that we can go about doing that. Folks can reach out to the governor and to his agencies while they're working through their budget process at the back half of the year, or
you can reach out to your state rep and your state senator to advocate directly for the funding line items or amendments that you think are personally important. You might join up with advocacy groups who are focused on a particular set of issues, and those advocacy groups often reach all of the reps and all of the senators to advance funding for their particular issues. And those advocacy reach outs, right, those touches happen for a lot longer than you might think, right? In the Senate, for example, each of the senators has a meeting with the Senate Ways and Means chair long before the Senate budget proposal comes out. That budget proposal comes out in early May, but we have those meetings before that. So if you want to talk to your senator before that meeting happens, you're probably looking at early March to reach out to us.
And a similar thing happens on the House side, where we all meet with the House Ways and Means chair, usually in February or March throughout that process. And so you might be wondering, how do I find out who my state representative or state senator is? I encourage you to go to wheredoivotema.com, and that'll provide that information. And do reach out. It's so important to have our constituents reach out to us throughout this entire process so we know that we're serving you in the best way that we possibly can. Thanks so much for joining us today, and stay tuned for the next edition of
Low Budget Beacon Hill.
That was good. All right.